The New York International Airport was buzzing. Between the flow of rushed executives and families carrying huge suitcases, a figure shunned luxury and modernity around. Benjamin Brown, an old gentleman, wearing simple clothes worn by time, walked with slow steps, observing everything with a curious and dazzled look. It was the first time he traveled by plane. Holding firmly his beaten suitcase full of humble clothes and the unmistakable smell of land and cattle, Benjamin did not imagine the hurricane that was about to unfold. He came from the interior of North Salem, accustomed to the silence of the fields, but now was about to face a storm in the heart of the metropolis. As he approached the boarding desk, Benjamin presented his ticket. His hands, drawn by the work in the land, transmitted the story of a life dedicated to agriculture. The attendant, a young woman with warm smile, noticed the perplexity in his look and decided to welcome him kindly. "First class, Mr. Brown. It seems you have a very special trip ahead of you," exclaimed she, giving her boarding pass with enthusiasm. Benjamin scratched his head, completely disconcerted. "First class? Are you sure there was no mistake, lady? I just ordered a regular seat." The attendant, looking at the note once more, smiled and reaffirmed. "No mistake, sir. Your seat is indeed in first class. Enjoy the ride." Across the terminal, automatic doors opened with a gentle mechanical whistle, revealing the triumphant entrance of Charlotte Smith, a New York socialite known for her wealth and influence. His steady and proud walk, enhanced by the heels that echoed on the marble floor, attracted looks of admiration and envy. She held a designer bag, more expensive than anything Benjamin could imagine. As Charlotte headed toward the gate, her posture exhaled power and arrogance. In the distance, she barely noticed Benjamin until fate, cruel and ironic, put them side by side in the first-class line. "What's that smell?" she mumbled, twisting her nose. The odor of life in the field exhaled from Benjamin, and Charlotte, accustomed to the most expensive perfumes and the sophistication of exclusive environments, did not endure. She looked at him from top to bottom, as if he were a joke badly told. "My God, what does this man think he's doing in first class?" Benjamin, with his calm and polite voice, answered without understanding the gravity of the situation. "I have my ticket here, lady. It's for first class anyway." Gradually, the surrounding passengers began to pay attention. Charlotte, without patience for what she considered an outrage, exploded. "That's absurd. He stinks of the stable. How can you allow this man to enter first class?" The eyes of all turned to Benjamin, who held his note with trembling hands, visibly uncomfortable, but keeping calm. An airline supervisor, accompanied by security guards, appeared to hear the confusion. Charlotte, with her eyes sparking indignation, went straight to the point. "This man is clearly in the wrong place. He does not belong to first class. I demand that he be removed immediately." The supervisor, trying to keep his composure, looked at Benjamin and then at Charlotte. "Madam, he has a valid ticket. There is no mistake." But Charlotte, unable to accept that someone like Benjamin was in her luxury space, would not leave cheap. "Do you know who I am? I'm Charlotte Smith. My husband is one of the largest shareholders in this airline. If you don't solve this now, I guarantee there will be consequences." The supervisor, already under pressure, became pale upon hearing the powerful name that Charlotte had mentioned. He turned to Benjamin Brown, who until that moment had been watching everything with calm and patience. The humiliation was palpable in the air. "Sir, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid we'll have to move you to economy class. The company's policy is to ensure the comfort of all passengers." Benjamin, with his tired and sad eyes, just nodded slowly. He never wanted to cause trouble. "All right, mister, I don't want to bother anyone." As the security escorted him out of first class, the room filled with whispers. Charlotte, with a smile of triumph on her lips, straightened her hair and sat down in her seat. "Finally. Now we can have a civilized trip." She hardly knew that that simple and modest-looking gentleman was not who she thought. His arrogance was about to trigger a sequence of events that would change his life forever. Now sitting in the last row of economy class, Benjamin looks out the plane window as the horizon begins to recede. He pulls a crumpled envelope out of his shirt pocket. Inside is the result of medical tests, a diagnosis that would give him only a few years to live. Benjamin's life seemed marked by difficulties, but even in the most bitter moments he kept calm. His distant gaze reflected dreams for the future, especially for his son. He holds the envelope again and sighs. Benjamin saw that trip to New York as a new beginning, but now, everything seemed further away. 6 months have passed since the incident at the airport. In a small, elegant cafe in the heart of New York, white marble tables and wrought iron chairs made up the classic ambience. Emma Smith, Charlotte's daughter, waited anxiously, thumping her fingers on the table. James Brown smiled from afar as he entered. His dark, unkempt hair and unpretentious manner gave him a charming air. He leaned over and gave Emma a soft kiss. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was horrible." "Don't worry. I just got here too." The two exchanged affectionate looks while making their requests. A cappuccino for Emma, a black coffee for James. The relaxed atmosphere and lively conversation revealed the brightness in the eyes of a couple in love. "Emma, I need to tell you something important." She stopped, curious, leaning forward. "What is it?" James took a deep breath, as if preparing to say something he had long since held back. "It's about my family. I think it's time you met my dad." Emma smiled, surprised and excited. "Really? I would love to meet him." James hesitated for a moment, choosing the words carefully. He is a simple man, a farmer. Life in the countryside has always been important to him. Emma frowned, a little confused. "But you always said that your family had business in the agricultural sector, right?" "Yes, it is true, but my father, Benjamin, prefers the simplicity of the land. He personally looks after our farm in North Salem." "That sounds lovely. I can't wait to meet you." Across town in a luxurious office, Charlotte Smith almost threw the phone away. Her frustration was evident. "How so? Brown Farm is not for sale. Offer more money. Everyone has their price." She turned off the phone angrily, getting up quickly and walking to the panoramic window. His life's project, the construction of a luxurious resort in the countryside of North Salem, was hampered by a simple farm that refused to be sold. The Brown Farm. They will eventually give in. Always give in. "William," called his assistant. "Prepare the car. Let's go visit this Brown Farm. I want to see for myself what kind of fool refuses an offer like ours." What Charlotte still did not know was that the same farm that blocked her ambitious project belonged to Benjamin Brown, the humble farmer she had humiliated on the plain months ago. And the most ironic, James, the man with whom your daughter was in love, was Benjamin's son. Fate has its ways of intertwining lives in unexpected ways. That morning at the airport was just the beginning of a deeper plot, where arrogance and humility would collide in ways no one could have foreseen. As Charlotte prepared for her unexpected journey, Benjamin Brown, with his eyes fixed on the orange and pink horizon painted by the sunset, watched the end of yet another day's work. The gentle breeze that passed through the porch of the farm brought him a momentary peace, but his thoughts were distant. The request of his son James still resonated in his mind. "Father, I want you to meet someone very special for me." "Sure, my son. When?" "We can do this at the weekend." Now, in front of the vastness of the fields he loved so much, Benjamin felt a mixture of emotions. The joy of meeting the woman who illuminated James's gaze, anxiety for the encounter, and the ever-present shadow of the disease that took time. He knew he needed to organize the future of his farm, but he also wanted to enjoy every moment with his son. His thoughts wandered, reliving the humiliating incident at the airport months ago. The memory of Charlotte Smith forcing him to move to economy class still burned in his mind. But Benjamin was a man who preferred to use his energies in constructive projects. Since that day, he has been working to perfect his greatest project, a revolutionary irrigation system capable of transforming arid lands into fertile soil. It would be his legacy to the family and to thousands of farmers across the country. As the sun faded on the horizon, Benjamin could not imagine that the same woman who had humiliated him was on her way to cross his destiny once again. At the elegant cafe in New York, Emma Smith and James Brown were finishing planning their weekend trip together. "So it's arranged. This weekend we will visit your father at the farm." James nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "Yes, I can't wait for you to meet. He's an amazing man, simple, but with a wisdom that few have." Emma tenderly shook hands with James. Her eyes shone with the prospect of meeting the man who created the love of her life. "I'm sure I'll love it." And who knows, we can soon introduce our families. My mother will be so excited to get to know you better." James froze for a moment. Charlotte Smith's name brought a shadow to her countenance. He knew that the connection between Emma's mother and her father could generate a storm neither of them expected. Shh. One step at a time. While the couple said goodbye with a tender kiss, Emma had no idea what James was hiding. Neither could have predicted that their worlds were about to collide in a dramatic confrontation. Fate had already released its data, and the truth would soon come to light, taking their lives in unexpected directions. On the winding dirt road that led into North Salem, a luxurious black SUV cut through the dust of the countryside. Charlotte Smith was determined to take possession of the Brown farm at any cost. Sitting in the back seat of the car, she was furiously typing on her tablet, reviewing documents and preparing her strategy. "William, are you sure we have all the information on this farm?" In the seat next to him, his assistant, William, a thin man with fine-framed glasses, nodded nervously. "Yes, ma'am. The Brown farm has been in the family for generations. The current owner is Benjamin Brown, a 68-year-old widower with only one child." A predatory glow crossed Charlotte's eyes. She smiled, confident. "Perfect. An old lone farmer will not be a match for me. By the end of the day, that land will be ours." She closed the tablet, turning her attention to the green landscape that passed through the window. To her, that was nothing but an obstacle to be removed, a piece of land that would be easily conquered. At the farm, Benjamin Brown woke up to the familiar sound of the rooster. Despite his 68 years and the disease that slowly consumed him, he kept the routine that followed since young. Get up early, walk through the fields, and supervise the work on the land that was his life. But today, something was different. James was on his way, bringing with him the woman he meant so much to. As he walked through the green fields, Benjamin stopped at his latest creation, the irrigation system he had developed. Looked with pride at the project that could change the future of agriculture in the United States. That was his masterpiece, the legacy he would leave for James and the world. This will transform the lives of so many people. Benjamin Brown knew that, on that very day, fate would bring him closer to the arrogant woman who had humiliated him. While he prepared the field to receive his son and his future daughter-in-law, Charlotte Smith was on her way, ready to break down any obstacle between her and the conquest of that land. The board was set. On one side, Charlotte's arrogance and greed. On the other, Benjamin's humility and legacy. And in the middle of it all, James and Emma, two young people in love, unaware of the shock that was about to unite their worlds in unexpected ways. The sun was already high in the sky when Benjamin Brown heard the distant sound of a car approaching by the dirt road. His heart sped for a moment, imagining that perhaps James was arriving earlier than expected. A smile lit up his face as he thought of the reunion with his son and his future daughter-in-law. But as he turned, his smile slowly faded. The vehicle that was coming was not James's modest car. Instead, a luxurious black SUV stopped in front of the main farmhouse, raising dust around. Charlotte Smith stepped out of the car, her heels sinking slightly into the soft earth. She made a grimace of disgust at feeling the texture of the floor, clearly uncomfortable with that rural environment. "Hello, how can I help you?" Charlotte turned with the intention of casting her negotiating charm, but as she stared at Benjamin for a brief moment, a spark of recognition shone in his eyes. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, but quickly repressed the sensation, assuming the firm and confident posture for which she was known. "Good morning. I'm looking for Mr. Benjamin Brown." Benjamin immediately recognized the woman who humiliated him at the airport months ago. His friendly smile faltered for a moment, but he chose to keep composure. "It's me, ma'am. What can I do for you?" Without recognizing who was before her, Charlotte threw herself into a well-rehearsed speech. He spoke about the benefits of selling the farm to his company, mentioning astronomical values and promises of regional development. Throughout the speech, Benjamin remained calm, listening patiently. When Charlotte finally finished, he replied with the same tranquility as before. "Thank you for your interest, Mrs. Smith. But this farm is not for sale." Charlotte's face warped in a mixture of surprise and irritation. Accustomed to rarely hearing the word no, especially in business, she couldn't believe rejection. "Mr. Brown, perhaps you have not understood the magnitude of the offer I am making. With that money, I could live comfortably for the rest of my life." Benjamin gave a slight smile, but his voice remained firm. "Mrs. Smith, life is not measured by comfort or money alone. This land is my history, my present, and the future of my son. There is no price to pay for this." Before Charlotte could reverse, the sound of a car approaching again caught everyone's attention. James arrived, accompanied by Emma, ready to meet Benjamin. The couple got out of the car, confused to see the unusual scene before them. Benjamin, Charlotte, and their companion standing in the middle of the yard. "Dad, is everything okay?" Benjamin's face lit up when he saw his son. "James, how good that you arrived." Benjamin turned to Charlotte, who was watching the scene with growing discomfort. He knew that the next moment would be delicate. "Miss Smith, if you'll excuse me, I have guests to receive. As I said, the farm is not for sale." Charlotte, astonished at Benjamin's firmness, could not answer immediately. His eyes wandered between Benjamin, James, and finally stopped at Emma. His expression of surprise soon turned into shock when he recognized the young woman. "Emma, what are you doing here?" Emma, equally perplexed at seeing her mother in that place, felt the words slip away for a moment. "Mom, I came to meet James' dad." A tense silence fell on the group, each absorbing the implications of the situation. Charlotte was processing the shocking discovery as she looked from Benjamin to James and finally to her daughter. James and Emma, caught by surprise, tried to understand what was going on. The only one who seemed to have full control of the situation was Benjamin, who, despite all the tension, kept his calm posture. "It seems we have a lot to talk about. Why don't we all come in and have coffee?" The living room of the farm, normally cozy, was immersed in a climate of palpable tension. Benjamin, James, Emma, and Charlotte were sitting around the dining table, cups of coffee in front, but no one dared to take the first sip. William and Charlotte's driver had been dismissed, leaving the two families alone to deal with the delicate situation. After long seconds of silence, James was the first to speak, his voice laden with confusion and a growing sense of understanding. "Can someone explain to me what is going on here?" Benjamin sighed deeply, looking from Charlotte to James, pondering how to explain the events that led up to that moment. "Son, it seems that fate has decided to play a trick on us and unite our lives in an unexpected way." The silence that followed was broken by Charlotte, who until then had an expression of shock and indignation. Finally, she found her voice. "Emma, did you know this? Do you know who your boyfriend's family was?" The word boyfriend came out with a pinch of disdain, and Emma, still stunned by the revelation, shook her head negatively. "No, Mom. I had no idea." James never went into details about his family. He just said that his father was a farmer. James, sitting next to Emma, nodded, confirming. "It's true. I wanted Emma to know my father for the man he is, not for what we have or don't have." Charlotte snorted, still incredulous of the situation. "Not for what you have?" "James, do you have any idea of the value of this property? Of the potential that you are wasting here?" Before the conversation took a more rough turn, Benjamin intervened, his voice calm but firm. "Charlotte, I believe there are more important things to discuss now than the monetary value of this land." Charlotte's first name caught her by surprise. For the first time since she had arrived at the farm, she actually observed Benjamin. Something in the way he spoke, the way he behaved, aroused an uncomfortable memory. Doubt invaded his voice, usually confident. We've met before, haven't we?" Benjamin nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on hers. "Yes, Mrs. Smith. We met a few months ago, on a flight to New York, although I must say that the circumstances were not the most pleasant." Charlotte turned pale. The memory of that day at the airport came to light like a bucket of cold water. The public humiliation of a simple man, who now revealed himself as the father of his daughter's boyfriend, weighed on her in an unbearable way. She was speechless. "What incident? You were the one who humiliated James' father on that flight?" Emma's voice trembled, charged with restrained emotion. Charlotte, for the first time in many years, felt her usual arrogance dissipate. Without her emotional armor, she was exposed and vulnerable. The words simply failed to come out. Realizing the emotional turmoil that was unfolding, Benjamin decided to take control of the situation. His voice was soft but full of compassion. What happened in the past happened. We can't change it. What matters now is how we deal with the present and the future. He looked from Charlotte to James and Emma, noticing the pain in the eyes of the young. You both love each other, that's obvious. Don't let the mistakes or prejudices of others interfere with how you feel about each other. Charlotte, still struggling to get herself together, looked at Benjamin with a mixture of confusion and growing reluctant admiration. For the first time, I saw a man far beyond the farmer I had despised. How can you be so understanding after what I did? Benjamin gave a sad but serene smile. Miss Smith, life is too short to hold a grudge. He paused, pondering whether he should share the secret he kept. He decided that honesty was the best way and continued. I was diagnosed with a rare disease. The doctors gave me only a few years to live. The revelation fell like a bomb in the room. James, who already knew of his father's condition, bowed his head, trying to contain the tears. Emma gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. Charlotte felt the ground crumble under her feet. I didn't know. Benjamin nodded calmly. Few know, but that's why every day, every moment is precious to me. That's why this farm, this legacy, means so much. It's not just about land or money, Mrs. Smith. It's about family, about creating something that will last beyond ourselves. A heavy silence fell on the room as everyone digested Benjamin's words. Finally, James, gathering courage, raised his head and spoke, his voice charged with emotion. Father, I want you to know that I intend to continue your work here. The farm, your inventions. I will do everything to make your legacy live. Emma, with her eyes filled with tears, shook hands with James. And I will be by your side no matter what. And so in the midst of painful revelations and unexpected truths, the pieces of fate began to fit together as each faced his past and decided what to build for the future. Benjamin's legacy now extended beyond the borders of his farm and began to touch the hearts of everyone around him. Charlotte Smith watched the scene in front of her, feeling strangely out of place. His whole life had been devoted to business, profits, and social status. Yet there, in that simple room of a farm, he witnessed something that challenged his beliefs. The genuine love, commitment, and dedication that united that family made it question its own priorities for the first time in many years. Started with the voice failing. I apologize for what happened on the plane, for trying to buy your land, for everything. Benjamin, who had hitherto observed Charlotte with the serenity of someone who had already forgiven much in life, faced her. He saw beyond the relentless facade of a businesswoman. There, before him, was someone vulnerable for the first time. I accept your apologies, Mrs. Smith, and hope that we can all learn something from this situation. Benjamin stood up slowly and walked to the window. The afternoon sun bathed the fields of the farm in a golden glow, the wind gently swaying the crops. He made a gesture to bring everyone closer. Come, I want to show you something. James, Emma, and Charlotte stood up and gathered by the window. Benjamin, looking at the vast field he knew so well, began to talk about his innovative irrigation system, explaining how it could change the course of farm production and potentially agriculture across the country. He mentioned his plans to expand production in a sustainable way, ensuring the farm would continue to thrive for many generations. As he spoke, something began to change in the room. Charlotte, who had previously seen everything in terms of monetary value, began to realize the true meaning of that land. James and Emma felt their love strengthened by the adversity they had faced together. And Benjamin, watching those around him, felt a peace that he had not experienced for a long time. The future was still uncertain, with many wounds that needed to be healed. But that afternoon, on a farm in the countryside of North Salem, the first steps were taken toward mutual understanding. In the weeks following the turbulent encounter at Brown Farm, a tense calm settled between the Brown and Smith families. Determined not to let circumstances shake their relationship, James and Emma plunged headlong into the farm projects. On a sunny morning, James walked through the fields, enthusiastically explaining the operation of the irrigation system his father had developed. See, Emma, this system not only saves water but also distributes nutrients efficiently. It's revolutionary. Emma, who had always lived in the city and was not familiar with country life, was fascinated. "That's amazing, James. Your dad is a genius." James smiled, proud. There was something deeply gratifying about seeing his father's legacy thrive before his eyes, with the promise of an innovative future for the farm. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of Smith Enterprises, Charlotte was immersed in thoughts. The meeting at the farm had stirred her more than I would admit. She couldn't forget the image of Benjamin speaking passionately about his land, even though she knew her time was running out. She called her assistant, William, without taking her eyes from the window. "William, cancel all my appointments for tomorrow. I'm going on a trip." "Sure, ma'am." "Where to?" Charlotte hesitated for a moment before answering. "To the Brown farm." The next morning, Charlotte arrived again at Brown Farm, but this time there was no arrogance in her posture. She wore simple clothes appropriate for the rural environment and, unlike last time, brought with her an expression of genuine curiosity. Benjamin found her on the balcony, holding a cup of coffee. "Lady Smith, what a surprise! To what do we owe the honor of this visit?" Charlotte hesitated before speaking, clearly out of her comfort zone. "Mr. Brown, I came to learn about the farm. About your work, if you're willing to teach me, of course." Benjamin arched his eyebrows, surprised, but a gentle smile soon formed on his lips. "Well, in that case, let's start our class. And please call me Benjamin." For the next few hours, Benjamin guided Charlotte through the fields of the farm, explaining every detail of the irrigation system, the sustainable methods he had developed, and his plans for the future of production. Charlotte listened intently, asking questions and absorbing everything with a growing admiration. They finished the day on the porch of the farm, watching the sunset gild the horizon. "You know, Charlotte, when I got my diagnosis, I thought it was coming to an end. But now I realize that it's just the beginning of something bigger." "What do you mean?" "This system we have developed here can change the lives of thousands of farmers in arid regions. But it needs someone with business acumen to take it forward on a large scale." Charlotte widened her eyes as she realized what Benjamin was suggesting. "Are you suggesting a partnership?" Benjamin nodded. "Exactly. Your business experience combined with our technology, imagine the impact we could have together." For a moment, Charlotte was silent, processing the proposal. She had never thought of using her skills for anything greater than profit, but at that moment, a flame was lit within her, a desire to do something meaningful. "Benjamin, I think we have a deal." Benjamin shook his hand with a smile. "Let's go ahead then." And so a new partnership was formed, not only to save the farm, but to change the lives of many. Fate, once again, had acted in an unexpected way, uniting two completely different worlds into a common cause. Life, after all, was much more than money or status. It was about the legacy you leave behind. As James and Emma watched from afar the interaction between Charlotte and Benjamin, a sense of hope grew within them. For the first time, there was a glimpse that the wounds between their families were beginning to heal. The tension that once hovered over them was gradually dissipating. Later, during lunch, the mood was relaxed. Charlotte, who looked lighter and happier than Emma remembered seeing her in years, surprised everyone with an unexpected confession. "I never thought I would say that, but I think I'm falling in love with country life." Benjamin smiled, his eyes shining with a mixture of fun and affection. "Watch out, Charlotte. I'll see you driving a tractor in a few minutes." The table exploded with laughter, including Charlotte, who finally seemed to be letting go of her old life. Emma watched her with admiration, surprised to see her mother so light and relaxed. After lunch, while the group was chatting happily on the balcony, James pulled Emma into a more private corner of the garden. His heart was beating fast, and he knew that it was the perfect time for what he was about to do. "Emma, these last few months have been crazy, haven't they? With everything that happened between our families, the farm project. Yes, it was a roller coaster." James took a deep breath, gathering the courage he needed. "And you know what? All this just made me even more sure of what I want for our future." With a quick movement, James knelt, pulling out a small box from his pocket. Emma gasped, surprised as tears began to form in her eyes. "Emma Smith, would you do me the honor of marrying me?" Emma's response was immediate, her face lit by a radiant smile. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes. The couple's cries of joy attracted the attention of Benjamin, Charlotte, and the others, who quickly joined together to celebrate their engagement. Benjamin, watching the scene with tears in his eyes, felt a wave of gratitude. He knew his time was limited, but witnessing that moment of happiness filled his heart with peace. Surprising everyone, Charlotte approached Benjamin and embraced him spontaneously. "Thank you for teaching me the true value of things." Benjamin returned the hug, realizing the genuine transformation that Charlotte had gone through. She was no longer the same arrogant, business-obsessed woman he had met months before. As the sun set, bathing the farm in golden tones, the group remained together, sharing laughter, stories, and plans for the future. The place that had once been the scene of tensions and disputes was now the setting for an unlikely but deeply meaningful union. Sitting in his favorite rocking chair, Benjamin watched everything with a serene smile. He knew his time was running out, but the sight of his family being reunited, happy and strengthened, gave him a sense of completeness. His legacy was not only the farm or irrigation system he had developed, it was something much greater. The union of two families, forgiveness and reconciliation, and the certainty that love and understanding can transform even the most hardened hearts. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, Benjamin made a silent prayer, thanking for each challenge overcome, for each lesson learned, and above all, for the chance to see love bloom amid ancient scars. The night was advancing, but for all there, what was clear was that this was only the beginning of a new and exciting journey. The year following James and Emma's engagement was marked by great changes and challenges. The startup created to develop and distribute the irrigation system of Benjamin, called Waters of Tomorrow, began to gain national recognition. Charlotte, completely involved in the project, surprised everyone with her dedication. She divided her time between New York and the farm, and often preferred the air of the countryside to the comfort of her luxurious penthouse in the capital. On a particularly hot afternoon, Charlotte and Benjamin were sitting in the shade of a large hose, discussing the latest developments of the Waters of Tomorrow project. "You know, Benjamin, sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if we hadn't met that day." Benjamin smiled, his wrinkles deepening around the eyes. "Fate has curious ways of working, doesn't it?" Charlotte nodded, her eyes unexpectedly filling with tears. "I was so empty, always running for more money, more power." She made a comprehensive gesture to the farm. "Now I feel like I'm really making a difference." Benjamin gently put his hand on hers, his touch full of empathy. "You always had that potential inside of you, Charlotte. Sometimes we just need a little push to see what really matters." At that moment, Charlotte felt she had finally found her purpose. It was not just about profits or business success, but about the positive impact that it could have on the world. The farm, once a matter of contention, had become a symbol of renewal and hope. Benjamin, Charlotte, James, and Emma's lives were intertwined by something much greater than just fertile land. Benjamin's legacy, born of love for his farm and the desire to leave something meaningful for the future, continued to flourish. The countryside, which once seemed a place of separation, had now become a haven for shared dreams and a place where the true value of life was understood. James and Emma were fully involved in the wedding preparations. They decided that the ceremony would be held at the Brown farm itself, a symbol of unity not only among themselves but also among their families. The idea of getting married in that special place reflected how central the farm had become to their lives and journeys. One night, while working on the invitations, Emma noticed that James was quieter than usual. She put her hand gently on his arm, worried. "Is everything okay, love?" James hesitated for a moment before answering, his voice charged with emotion. "It's my dad, Emma. He's getting weaker every day. I'm afraid he won't be here to see our wedding." James's words echoed a fear that Emma also felt but tried to push away. She approached him and hugged him with strength, trying to convey comfort. "Your father is the strongest man I've ever met, James. He'll be there, I'm sure." Although Emma's words were comforting, they both knew that Benjamin's condition was deteriorating. The treatments were becoming more difficult, and despite his determination to remain active, it was evident that time was running out. It was in this context that Charlotte had a bold idea. During a family reunion on the farm, she proposed something unexpected, but that could bring a solution to James's fear. What if we move the wedding forward? We could have an intimate ceremony right here on the farm as soon as possible. The room was silent for a brief moment, with all eyes turned to James and Emma. The two exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. "What do you think?" she whispered. James nodded slowly and, with a smile that mixed relief and emotion, answered, "I think it's a wonderful idea." Benjamin, who watched everything with his eyes swollen, intervened with his voice weak but full of emotion. "Nothing would make me happier than to see my son get married." The decision was unanimous. In the following days, the Brown farm turned into a whirlwind of activities. Staff, friends, and family came together to organize what promised to be a simple but meaningful event. The ceremony was held just 3 weeks later, under a starry sky. James and Emma exchanged their vows in the heart of the farm, surrounded by soft lights hanging from the trees. Benjamin, sitting in a wheelchair and supported by Charlotte, watched the ceremony with tears in his eyes as his son began a new chapter in his life. James and Emma's union was a testimony not only of the love they felt for each other, but also of the strength they found in adversity. The differences that once separated their families now seemed distant, replaced by a renewed connection. As the newlyweds danced under the lights, Benjamin watched the scene with a serene smile and murmured to himself, "It was worth. Every moment was worth." The months following the wedding were bittersweet. Benjamin's health continued to decline, but he faced each day with courage and determination. His work on the Waters of Tomorrow project seemed to give him additional strength, and he spent hours discussing ideas and plans with Charlotte, James, and Emma. On an autumn morning, as the golden leaves danced in the wind, Benjamin made a special request. He wanted to be taken to the field where the irrigation system, which he had created, was first implemented. "I want to see the fruit of our labor one last time." Charlotte, who had become a constant and comforting presence in the past few months, pushed her wheelchair. James and Emma walked beside them, their hands intertwined. Upon reaching the field, the sight was breathtaking. Rows and rows of green plantations stretched as far as the eye could see, a living testimony to the success of his invention. "It's beautiful, isn't it? To think that this can help so many people, so many families." Charlotte knelt beside her chair, holding her wrinkled hands gently. "And it will help, Benjamin. Your legacy will touch lives for generations." That night, everyone gathered on the porch of the farmhouse. Benjamin, feeling his time was running out, asked to speak with everyone. His voice was weak, but full of love and gratitude. "My dear, I can't express how grateful I am to have you in my life. James, my son, you have made me so proud. Emma, you brought an extra light to our family. And Charlotte," he exchanged a meaningful look with her, "you taught me that it's never too late to change, to grow." Everyone listened in silence, absorbing each word with emotion. The Waters of Tomorrow project is more than a company or an invention. It is a symbol of how we can overcome our differences, of how love and understanding can flourish in the most unlikely places. He looked at each of them, his eyes shining with emotion. "Promise me that you will continue this work, that you will use it not only to generate profits, but to make a real difference in people's lives." Tears flowed freely from the faces of James, Emma, and Charlotte. They all agreed, knowing that they were not only promising to honor Benjamin's work, but also the legacy of love, forgiveness, and transformation he had cultivated. Under a sky full of stars, the group was enveloped by a feeling of gratitude and purpose. Benjamin, even in his last moments, continued to inspire and guide their lives. His legacy was much more than a farm or an invention. It was about love, reconciliation, and the power to leave something greater than oneself for the future. In the weeks following that exciting conversation on the balcony, Benjamin was getting weaker and weaker. But even in his last days, he kept the spirit high. Always with a kind word, a wise advice, or a serene smile, he conveyed peace to those around him. Then, on a quiet winter night, Benjamin Brown peacefully went to sleep, surrounded by those he loved most. His departure, though expected, brought a deep sadness, but also a sense of gratitude for the life he had lived so fully. Benjamin's funeral was less a sad farewell and more a celebration of his life and legacy. Farmers from all over the region came to pay their respects. Many told stories about how Benjamin's inventions and generosity had changed their lives. The Brown farm, once a source of contention, now represented a place of union and transformation. As the coffin was lowered to the ground, James and Emma embraced each other in silence, their emotions overflowing. Charlotte, with her eyes swollen, approached the two, voice seized by emotion. Her father. She began by fighting against tears. He taught me the true meaning of wealth. It's not about money or power. It's about the impact we leave in the world, the lives we touch. James, wiping tears, nodded, reflecting on what his father meant to him. And we will continue his work, Mother. We will spread his dream all over the country, all over the world if we can. Emma, with a protective hand over her slightly swollen belly, a new miracle they had discovered a few weeks earlier, completed the promise. And we will ensure that the next generation know the story of his grandfather, the man who transformed not only the earth but also hearts. Charlotte, touched by the strength and resilience of James and Emma, saw in them the legacy of Benjamin perpetuating itself. And there, in that moment of grief and hope, she knew that the farm, and the life that everyone built around her, was in good hands. In the years following Benjamin's departure, Brown Farm has become much more than a simple rural property. It has been transformed into a hub of agricultural innovation, attracting researchers, farmers, and environmentalists from around the world. The Waters of Tomorrow project, which began as a bold dream, has expanded beyond Brazil's borders, bringing hope and prosperity to regions previously considered uninhabitable. Charlotte, now an owl grandmother, divided her time between her business responsibilities and the precious moments with her family. She often found herself standing in front of the portrait of Benjamin, hanging prominently in the farm room. In silence, she thanked for the man who had changed her life in ways she could never have imagined. James and Emma, now parents of two, led the project with passion and dedication, ensuring that Benjamin's work continued to inspire new generations. They told stories to their children about their grandfather, a simple man, but with a great vision. The story of Benjamin Brown was passed on, not as a distant legend, but as an example of how great dreams can be realized with dedication, love, and generosity. One afternoon, as the children ran through the fields of the farm, Charlotte, James, and Emma sat at the dinner table discussing plans for the future. Charlotte, looking at the lush view of the irrigated fields, smiled proudly. I never imagined that this farm would become what it is today. All of this started with Benjamin's vision. He always believed that we could go further, that this farm was not just ours, but an example for the world. And now, we are here to ensure that this vision continues. May his legacy never be forgotten. Charlotte, with discreet tears in her eyes, turned to the portrait of Benjamin on the wall. He taught us the true meaning of wealth, and I thank him every day for that. So Brown Farm has remained a living testament to how love, understanding, and vision can transform lives and unite people from such diverse backgrounds. Benjamin's legacy lived not only in the green and productive fields he helped to flourish, but also in the hearts of all those whom he touched with his wisdom, kindness, and unconditional love.